Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and welcome to the breaking news. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. It appears that the Russians are going to begin mass mobilizations or partial mobilizations here within the next month, as a statement was made by a recruitment officer in Talati, which appears to state that if the recruitment quotas are not met, they will begin partial mobilization and begin to draft people in the Russian public once more. I'm going to be moving y'all into this statement because while it is specifically directed at the workers of this factory and also directed at this oblast, it does appear, due to the wording, that this may be affecting the entirety of the Russian Federation and not just an individual oblast. But here's the clip, and I'll also be reading the translation as well. For the city of Talati, the plan to recruit 2,000 men was set. We recruited not much more than 250 people. This is 10 to 15% depending on the district. If we don't recruit 2,000 people within a month, there will be a second wave of mobilization. At that time, you will not be asked. The military office will simply issue summons. Therefore, if someone wants to improve their financial situation now, to stop some judicial examination concerning them, it can be done today. And as we can see by the statement being made, while he's saying that the city of Talati has not met the recruitment requirement, it does sound like a second wave of mobilization is appearing to state something nationwide. The last wave of mobilization was directed at specific oblasts, although we would see that once the mobilization was declared, certain oblasts were conscripted a little bit more than others, but that was a nationwide mobilization. And according to this statement, it appears that he's trying to make the point that if this oblast and all the other oblasts within the Russian Federation don't begin to up the amount of recruits that they're receiving monthly, they are going to begin a second wave of mobilization inside of Russia. And this is starting to show that the Russians have run out of a strategic reserve once again, and it's putting the nails in the coffin for that. There is no doubt about it. The Russians are running out of manpower, and they're getting so desperate that while Vladimir Putin around 6 to 8 months ago said that there would be no second wave of mobilization, it is getting so bad that they have no choice but to call up a second wave of mobilization. Going off of that and seeing what kind of urgency there is, the Russian army is in a very bad state, and this may also start to affect the frontline situation, as the required amount of Russian soldiers are not making it to Ukraine anymore, and they're not even making it into the Russian army. And that may be showing us that Ukraine has an amazing window right now to push the Russian forces at Robotne and on the village chain to take Staromanivka and to also push down towards Tokmak, because right now Russian units may be weaker than they ever will be manpower-wise. The Russians are clearly not getting enough reinforcements to replace the lost Russian soldiers in this theater, and along with the United States' statement today from the Department of Defense saying that the injured and killed of the Russian army is somewhere close to probably 500,000 Russian soldiers, this is a fairly good time for the Ukrainians to strike on that part of the front line. And strike indeed they do, but not on the front lines. We heard today of the longest range strike that the Ukrainians have ever conducted so far in this war, and this occurred at the town of Soltsi. Soltsi is a fairly small town in the Nizhny Novgorod Oblast, but what sits right outside of Soltsi is what matters. It is a Russian military airbase. This airbase, at this time, today, houses around 10 Tu-22M backfire strategic bombers. These are not the largest ones of the Russian Air Force. Now, I should be trying to pull y'all up a little picture of a Tu-22M right here. And let me go take y'all to Wikipedia. This is a picture of the Tu-22M3 backfire, as we would know it today. These are some of Russia's workhorses of their strategic bomber fleet. Not as large and impressive as the Tu-160 Black Swan or the Tu-95 Bear, but nevertheless, it does do a large amount of work for the Russian Air Force. Most of the Tu-22s that have been seen in recent history have been spotted over Syria, and a decent amount of these have also been used to fire cruise missiles into Ukraine. From what we were able to tell, a Ukrainian strike has hit the airfield, and there have been reports that 2 of the Tu-22s have been damaged or have been completely destroyed. This report here from Clash Report says 1 aircraft was reportedly damaged, but later on in the day, just about another hour later, It appears that 2 of them may have been damaged or maybe even destroyed. The information is a little unclear, but we can see the smoke billowing from the airfield. This picture was taken from inside of Salty, just near to the airfield, and it does appear that whatever has been hit, it is burning prolifically and may be indicating that there are some very considerable losses that the Russians may have taken. Even if one of these airframes was damaged, replacing or even repairing a Tu-22M is a fairly difficult task. A lot of these aircraft were actually manufactured during the times of the Soviet Union, and therefore they usually got a large amount of Ukrainian parts that were manufactured in Ukrainian factories. And of course, with the dissolution of the Soviet Union, it's very hard to get a lot of those parts and equipments to be able to replace and keep these Tu-22s running, because they're now in other countries, and a decent amount of those countries are no longer friendly with the Russian Federation. And so the damage to this airframe may mean that it's knocked out until the end of the war, or knocked out until replacement parts can be found, which could be a very long time down the road. A fairly interesting ordeal, but still, another big thing to grab from this is how far away this airfield is. If we take the airfield of Soltoy, and we measure the distance from there to the closest part of the Ukrainian border, which would be around right here, that drone, whatever hit that airfield, had to fly 413 miles through Russian or Belarusian territory to be able to make it to Soltoy and then destroy or damage an aircraft or 2. That is a long-range drone. In fact, that is a longer distance from there than it is to Moscow for a drone attack to originate from Ukraine. And we can see to the very middle of Moscow is only 278 miles, meaning that this drone strike at Soltoy was a whole 130 to 140 miles deeper a strike than one would be on Moscow. And it's clearly showing that the Ukrainians are starting to grow an ability to strike practically anywhere within the populated area of Western Russia, where most of Russia's industry can be found. And this could start to change the course of the war, especially if this starts to begin on a normal basis. The Russians will have to deploy their aircraft deeper and deeper into Russia to try and make sure that they can avoid the drone attacks that the Ukrainians may be committing on their airfields, and of course using to destroy large strategic bombers and aircraft that the Russians count on to fire off their strategic missiles, or their cruise missiles more so. Moving on from that bit of news inside of Russia, more interesting news has been found around the world today, but not in the realm of destroying equipment, but bringing in new equipment to the war. Zelensky has visited Sweden today and actually was meeting with the Swedish royal family about at the time this video was being made. While this was happening, Zelensky made a statement that the Swedes and the Ukrainians have come to an agreement to start training Ukrainian pilots on the Gripen. This is a fairly interesting little turn of events here, because a lot of people have been wondering, why are the Ukrainians not pushing as hard as they have been to get Gripens, and why have the Swedes not really been trying to push it as much? The Gripen was a flop as far as it went on the world stage. It wasn't really sold a lot as an export aircraft, and for an aircraft to be built practically solely for export, it was a little bit of a failure. It's still an impressive aircraft, nevertheless, an amazing multi-role, and from what we understand, it can go toe-to-toe with aircraft like the F-16 or the Eurofighter Typhoon. It's about in that same category. The Ukrainians and the Swedes appear to have finally come to an agreement. Most likely the Ukrainians' need for modern fighter aircraft, and the Swedes need to ensure that the Saab company is able to fulfill some kind of export contracts. We can now see that the Gripen will possibly be making it to Ukraine. Trials is what's happening right now. Let me make that clear. It's not going to be training on it in hopes of getting them there as soon as possible. There are going to be trials to see if Ukrainian pilots find the aircraft to be satisfactory or good enough to be in the Ukrainian Air Force. Being quite honest, anything rather than the MiG-29 is a huge step up, and so they'll probably find that this thing is suitable, and the Ukrainians will go about the acquisitions process to purchase some of these Gripens, and then of course the training process as well, which may be somewhat lengthy. Nevertheless, it now may be a reality that the Gripen fighter aircraft may arrive in Ukraine here in the near future. And so moving on from that, which is of course incredible news, and hopefully we'll see that it makes it there, we've also heard from around the area of Lviv that Germany will be moving into the country through the Rheinmetall company, or Krauss-Maffei-Wegmann, to begin repairing Leopard tanks inside the country. At the moment, if a Leopard 2 main battle tank is damaged in Ukraine, it has to be transported all the way to the town of Katowice, or more so, Gliwice. I don't know if that's the way to pronounce it, but that's how we're going to pronounce it. they have to take it all the way to there. And that's a massive process, of course, adding a long road trip to the already incredibly long road trip from the front lines in Ukraine, where the Leopards will then be repaired, and then they'll be turned around to go back into service in Ukraine. It's a bit of a lengthy process, and the trip doesn't really add a lot to shaving down the amount of time. And so the Ukrainians have been looking for a way to make the supply routes shorter, or more so to make the logistics routes shorter. And the Germans appear to have stepped up to help, as they are now going to be setting up a repair facility inside of western Ukraine. Of course, the exact location is not being stated for operational security reasons, but they will be starting work this month, meaning that within the next week or two, we will see that the first Leopards will be repaired inside of Ukraine, and then will return back to action while being in Ukraine the entire time. There will be no border hopping anymore, and there will not be any incredibly long supply lines and logistics lines meant to keep these Leopards running. This is huge news, and of course will ensure that more Leopards are available at any given time on the front lines to ensure that Ukraine can continue to put pressure on the Russians and put their best side against them. Not using the T-72s and the T-84s of yore, but the modern Leopard 2A6s that the German army would have used. And now moving on into a bit of unfortunate news. Of course, this is one that is a little bit tough to talk about, and I didn't include many of the clips and videos that could have been shown of this, but many of y'all remember the children's theater inside the city of Mariupol, and I'll be trying to find that for y'all real quick. This is actually where it is, and you can see that Google Maps is updated to show the destroyed children's theater, and you can also see the rest of Mariupol completely destroyed from start to finish, buildings destroyed all across the entire city. The children's theater in Mariupol was the drama theater in Mariupol was used as a shelter for hundreds of Ukrainians when the Battle of Mariupol was just beginning. The Russians slammed the building with a missile and ended up killing hundreds of Ukrainian citizens that were stuck inside. It is still considered an atrocity to this day, and one of the worst war crimes, single individual war crimes, to happen during this war, outside the Battle of Mariupol itself, where tens of thousands of Ukrainian citizens would end up losing their lives due to Russian rules of engagement, and also the Russians' lack of care for any citizenry. The same thing happened inside of Chernobyl today. Inside of Chernobyl, there is a similar theater, and I'll be trying to find that for y'all here on the map. But it is within the center of the city, and I believe it is somewhere around here. Nevertheless, the theater in this city is fairly the same in its architectural construction and its purpose to the one that was found in Mariupol. Today that building became the victim of a Russian missile attack, which has ended up killing 7 people and wounding over 120. It was an absolutely brutal attack, and one that once again shows the barbarism of Russian forces. We actually have a small amount of security footage here from nearby showing the after effect of the missile hitting the building. We can see some kind of a large piece of debris that was burning fly across the square and into another building over here. We can now see people running away from the building. And that's the end of that clip. Pictures have been coming out from the site, which I cannot show on YouTube, of people who were slain laying in the street and massive amounts of injured people all around. The building, of course, was nearly completely destroyed in the missile hit, and from what we understand, this was due to an operational security violation. The building at the time was hosting a drone technology exhibition for a very short while, so that way Ukrainian tech firms who were producing drones for the war effort could get together and compare tech and try and improve their products, and of course make sure that they are more effective on the battlefield. That came out 6 hours before the attack, and just 6 hours later, that missile would end up flying directly into that building, striking it, and killing a dozen people, at least at this moment, and injuring around 120 of them. This kind of operational security violation is something that is starting to happen more and more as the war goes on, as people are getting very relaxed and thinking that they can really say or talk about anything they want. And I want to make sure that everyone remembers that operational security is as important at this point in the war as it was during the earlier parts of the war. Operational security can get people's lives killed, and there's been a lot of talk, and a lot of people have been coming up to me talking about how some YouTubers are appearing to throw operational security to the wind to try and get out there and get clicks, and that also appears to have been what happened with the Chernobyl theater being hit and people being killed, is that we're not just living in the YouTube world out here on YouTube. People are actually watching this stuff, and people can end up being killed based off the information that a YouTuber may give. And so I would like for everyone to remain vigilant and ensure that operational security is enforced in exact locations and times of certain things that are sensitive, like an arms expo being held inside of a drama theater, are kept secret, not thrown around the entire public for everyone to know. And so, with that, that is the end of the breaking news today. I thank everyone so much once again for watching. If y'all enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as these videos run almost every single day of the week, and we also run nightly live streams at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 days a week, except for Mondays, covering the past 24 hours of the war. And so with that, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.